Welcome back. In most overdose death cases, the dealer is never held accountable, but in Massachusetts, some prosecutors are starting to target the dealers as the number of deaths continue to rise.
Tonight in part 2 of our series on overdose death prosecutions, NBC 10 investigator Kathy Curran takes us to Essex County, where one dealer was just sentenced to time behind bars.
These are challenging and complex cases, but we've seen some drug dealers charged with manslaughter or distribution directly related to overdose deaths. One recently admitted he sold a deadly dose of drugs that killed a young Andover man.
The pain is always there, and the grief.
It's devastating to families.
Mary and Andrew Durham's 20-year-old son Max lost his battle with substance use disorder in 2019 after ingesting a deadly dose of fentanyl he bought from Joseph Como, who admitted to the crime.
What say you to count 001, charging you with manslaughter, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
This is him skating on his grandparents' pond.
Max loved the outdoors, his family, and his dog Sky. He was planning on going to college, but on the morning of December 7th, 2019, on his father's birthday, Max was found unresponsive on his bedroom floor in his Andover home.
Do you think he went to bed that night thinking, I want to die?
No. And I saw him throughout the evening, and he was planning to go to work the next day. That's when I went up and found him.
Max and his dealer, Joseph Como, both battled the demons of addiction. The two young men met at a sober home in New Hampshire, and on the night before Max died, Como sold him fentanyl. Texts show Max asking Como how much he should take because his tolerance for drugs was low, and Como replying, "Bro, not a lot, like a little, the real deal, dude."
The defendant was bragging that his fentanyl is so strong and so potent that he can sell it for double the street value.
Somebody who is actually selling this, they have to face the consequences. The folks that are struggling with addiction, they need our understanding.
Essex County District Attorney Paul Tucker, whose office prosecuted the case, believes every overdose death should be investigated and prosecuted if possible.
I think it's imperative that we take a look at this to make sure that we're doing all that we can to try to stem this tide of this opiate storm.
These cases are extremely difficult to prosecute in Massachusetts in the wake of a 2019 Supreme Judicial Court decision that overturned a manslaughter conviction in an overdose death case. Now, prosecutors have to be able to prove the dealer not only sold the drugs, but knew they could cause substantial harm or even death.
If the defendant would say something like, "Be careful, this is powerful, be careful, this is strong."
The NBC 10 investigators surveyed every district attorney's office in the state and found most have filed charges targeting the dealers, prosecuting them for manslaughter or drug-related charges in overdose deaths.
Many of these prosecutions in this state, at least, have been against low-level, street-level dealers, many of whom suffer from addiction themselves.
Defense attorney Nat Carney represented Joseph Como. He doesn't want to comment on the case, but says in general, these manslaughter prosecutions don't work.
These types of prosecutions does not treat that illness. It doesn't make our community safer. It does not reduce the amount of drugs on the street.
Max's death was devastating to me. We were close friends and both struggled with addiction.
This was a difficult case all the way around.
This was on that last hiking trip.
While nothing can bring back their son or ever heal their pain, Mary and Andrew Durham say finding the person responsible for selling the drugs that killed Max brings some sense of relief.
I feel that the precedent needs to be laid down where if you're dealing these drugs, the risk of prosecution should be hanging over your head.
Joseph Como was sentenced to 5 years in prison in this case. He'll undergo mental health and substance use evaluations when he's released. Tomorrow night, we hear from the DEA and what's being done at the federal level. Kathy Curran, NBC 10 Investigators.